Hello, how's everybody doing today? My name is Christian Wagner, and I'm the Militant Thomist. So today I'm going to be starting a series on the life of Pope St. Pius X. So I've just been feeling a particular devotion to the good Thomistic Pope. I think it's particularly fitting because, as I said, he was a very strong Thomist. He kind of completed and perfected what Pope Leo XIII started in the Leo IX revival of Thomism. So I figured that I would just go over his life a little bit. This will be in a series of probably like 10 videos. They'll only be like 10-15 minutes each. Just going over some of his story, kind of more chill. Just letting you know what he did, who he was, and why he's an amazing Pope. And maybe after that, I'll go over some of his encyclicals. I think that would be fun, especially those that have to do with St. Thomas, because, as I said, he was a very, very strong Thomist, and he did a lot for the glory and honor of the angelic doctor. But before that, if you enjoy what I'm doing and would like more resources, videos, PDFs, articles, and everything, including extra things in the Discord, then go to patreon.com/militantthomist to become a patron of any amount. And then also you can go to the bookstore at christianbwagner.com/shop, and you can get books that I have reprinted, and also the Militant Thomist mug, which I never keep on my desk, so I can't show you it. And then also, I know you out there, you have lost your Greek. You are probably sucking at Greek right now. So if you want to actually learn Greek the right way, according to the natural method, which is it's very smooth and easy, then check out Fluent Greek. And you can go there at fluentgreeknt.com and use the code militant for 20% off. So I'm going to get right into the good Pope's life. So he was born June 2nd, 1885, and he was the oldest of 8 surviving children of Giovanni Battista Sarto, who was the postmaster of his town. He wasn't really born in a city, and his wife Margherita, and his birth name was Giuseppe Melchior Sarto, and that's the only time I'll say that in this whole series. I'm just going to call him Pius. So his parents growing up were extremely poor. He did not come from money, extremely small town in the Venetian plains, but they were very pious. He had very pious parents. So from a very young age, he was extraordinarily brilliant. Everybody saw that he was a very bright kid, and he did very well in school. He mastered all the subjects at his village school from the age of 11. But he was also said to be a bit rambunctious. There's actually a story that I read in one of the sources where when he was made pope, somebody from his home village kind of flipped out and said, how did Giuseppe become pope? He used to steal a lot of my cherries. So he, from a young age, used to like to steal people's cherries. But that's about his only fault from his young age, because he was extremely brilliant. So when he was a kid, he used to serve at his local parish as an acolyte. He served mass daily back in the days when kids just went to mass daily. That must have been a wonderful world. And he kind of became the de facto leader of all of the groups of acolytes and used to help at the masses on a daily basis. So near his home, there was a chapel to the Blessed Virgin Mary, and he would go there all the time to pray. And from a young age, he built a very strong devotion to Our Lady. And it was during this time of serving daily at Mass, building his devotion to Our Lady, and such like that, that he discerned a vocation to the priesthood. So when he was 10 years old, during his catechumenate, because after you're baptized and before you receive First Communion, you need to take catechism classes. It was said by his priest that he was very zealous for catechism class. He'd show up every time they had it. He would ask questions all the time. He seemed just very interested in the things of God from a very young age. So it was around this time that there was a man named Don Luigi who was one of the local villagers. And as I said, yes, it was a village. This was an extremely small town that he was from, an extremely poor place. And he had like a local farm and everything. It was definitely country living for him. So this guy named Don Luigi, he had actually been educated and began to notice that Pius from a very young age was extremely bright and that he was basically smarter than all the other kids in his village. So Don Luigi taught him Latin so that he could go to grammar school, which was the basically I don't know how to. I guess it's like our middle school, high school would be grammar school. That's where they learn all the rudiments of grammar. And after he had finished learning Latin, he went to grammar school in Castelfranco, and this was a bit of a different environment from where Pius had grown up in. There was a cathedral there, and he would go to the cathedral all the time while he was in school to pray. There was Renaissance art there. It was a very different environment from where he grew up in his small village. But his grammar school was 4 miles from his house, and since his parents were very poor, it was said that he would just grab a loaf of bread for the day. I guess that's what they used to send their kids off with, and he would just walk 4 miles to his school. But eventually, I think it was after his second or third year in grammar school, he uh, his dad got a little bit more money. They began to do a little bit better financially, so he got upgraded from walking to school to going to school in a donkey cart, which is very interesting. So overall, it was said that he was a very good kid, except for his cherry stealing endeavors, and he would help around the farm that he grew up on, and that he would help his mother with his younger siblings because he was the oldest of eight. Now, at school, he was also extremely, extremely bright, and he graduated first in his class. So, since he was discerning a vocation to the priesthood, the diocese had him take the diocesan exams for seminary, and he was the first. He got first in his whole diocese. And I don't know how they know that, but I guess after the exams, they would just tell everybody what place they got in the diocese. But he was definitely extremely brilliant from a very very young age. But on the other hand, as we had said, even though his dad was doing a bit better financially, they were still extremely extremely poor. So his parents could not afford seminary for him. So his parish priest decided that Pius really, really needed to go to seminary, that he had a very bright future. So Pius's priest decided to beg the prefect of the seminary to help Pius out. And the prefect of the seminary checked Pius out and saw that he had been number one in the diocesan exams. So the prefect of the seminary decided it couldn't hurt. So he passed on the message to the Patriarch of Venice. Well, would you know, the Patriarch of Venice, Cardinal Jacopo Monico, he happened to be from the same exact village that Pius was from. Who would have known? And his dad was also very poor. So Monaco had pity on poor little Pius and realized that he was an extremely bright kid. So he gave Pius a full scholarship to the seminary to study. So at this time, Pius was 15 years old, and he got the letter from the Patriarch of Venice, and actually he put in a personal note for Pius to encouraging him, and his father was extremely excited because, as I said, his parents were extremely devout people, so the fact that one of his sons was actually going to be a priest was an extremely exciting thing for him. But Pius, on the other hand, it freaked him out a little bit because he actually had never in his entire life been more than 4 miles away from the place he grew up in, because that's just how it was in 1850s Italy. You just didn't go far away from your house if you were a poor kid. But he just packed up everything in that donkey cart. He grabbed a loaf of bread, and then he went on his way to Padua. So his seminary was in Padua, and Padua is actually an extremely just glorious city. The basilica there was designed by Michelangelo himself. It had the University of Padua, which was, I think, made in the 13th or 14th century. So a very nice city. Definitely not where he was used to growing up. So the seminary there was built in the late 16th century, and it had just a huge library. And there was also the library of the medieval University of Padua that I mentioned that was nearby. And this was the first time in Pius's entire life that he had actually seen a library. He had never seen a big collection of books in his entire life. So this was a bit crazy for Pius, which is a bit weird to think about, because even his grammar school was so tiny that it didn't even have a library. So I don't know how they taught the kids, but I guess the teachers just memorized all their lectures or something like that. I have no idea. So the superiors at seminary just loved Pius. Pius was just one of the favorites of the school. They said that he was great to be around, that he had a great personality, that he was just an extremely good student. Again, he was number one in his class at seminary too, and they had noticed that he had a very good industry. He had a good industry, as they described, which means that he was just extremely disciplined. They said that he had a very severe discipline, that he would not let himself have a minute to rest, that he was just all the time working and trying to make the best out of his seminary education. And another thing at this time that was noted, and again, he's a 15-year-old kid. They noticed that he was very zealous when it came to obedience to his superiors. This is going to be very important for later in the life of Pius, where that was something that was said over and over again throughout his life, that he was just a very obedient son of the church. And this came through in his encyclicals too, where he said, "In order to command, it is necessary to have learned to obey." So after his first year in seminary, he came back for his first break, and there's a story about him. It was said that when he came back from seminary for his first break as a 16-year-old kid, all he did the entire time was study. He brought back some books and he just read the whole time and talked with his local parish priest about the things of God. He was really an amazing person, even from such a young age. So then he went back to seminary for his second year after his break. And during this time, he had a few tragedies that happened. So in his second year, his father had died, leaving his mother alone to tend for his 7 younger siblings. So he decided that he wanted to quit seminary, go home, and then work and take care of his mother. But his mother refused and forced him to stay at seminary and told him that, "Look, bud, you're going to seminary. I'll starve rather than taking you out." And then his younger siblings, so I mean, these were 14, 14, 13, 12-year-old kids. His younger siblings went to work and helped take care of his mother. And then a second tragedy happened, and his village priest, who was a very close friend and very important mentor to him, got recalled from his post due to failing health. So his priest wasn't around anymore during his second year, too. So he didn't have that to look forward to when he came back from his breaks. And then the next priest who took the job, Don Pietro Jacuzzi, he was a very amazing priest, and he would exert a lot of influence on the future ministry of Pius. He was a very good example, and then also he had a very strong interest in music. So this strong interest in sacred music would be very influential for Pius in his ministry. He actually wrote, I think it's 2 or 3 encyclicals on sacred music. So that was something that was very important for Pius. But a third tragedy happens, and Don Pietro Jacuzzi got recalled again after just 1 year. Not that he was doing anything wrong. I don't know why Rome just does that. I guess just recalls priests. And they had to get a third priest. And I haven't been able to find the source for this third priest's name, but it makes sense that they didn't name him because this guy was just a horrible, horrible priest. Like everybody hated him. He was lazy. He was rude. It's actually said that one Sunday he preached from the pulpit that he hated having to go and be near dying people or go and visit sick people. He would just rather stay back and just hang out at the parish. He was just a very terrible priest. But even with this terrible priest, Pius kept up that disposition of obedience that he had, and he refused to speak ill of him to others. So another interesting story is that when I think he was 16 or 17 at this time, what he would have been 17 at this time when he came back from seminary for another break. I mean, you have the only seminarian in town, so people would try to go up to him and talk bad about the new priest in town. But Pius, he would go back home and hide in he would hide in his house so he wouldn't have to be around people speaking bad of the priest and to be tempted to speak bad of the priest. So he definitely cultivated very strong virtues from a young age. So going forward another 3 years to when he was 20 years old, he at this time was very well distinguished as the best student at the seminary in Padua. So he was given a private room so that he could study even more. And he spent all of his free time studying the fathers and sacred scripture. And then in this time, his love for sacred music was cultivated even more. And he was put in charge of music for many of the feast days. So on February 27th of this year, when he was 20, he was ordained a subdeacon in the Cathedral of Treviso, and it was on the Feast of the Sacred Heart. So they decided, since he was a subdeacon now, and I'm not sure about this, but it said that he went back to his hometown to preach, and I'm not sure whether subdeacons were even allowed to preach, but I guess they were. So maybe it was just more of a general sort of exhortation. So he gave a homily on the Sacred Heart, and everybody in his home village just went absolutely nuts. They were just raving about how amazing of a preacher that the young Pius was, and it was just so eloquent and so deep, and everybody just loved Pius. There was nobody speaking bad about Pius except the whole cherry stealing episode. So in August of 1858, Pius finally finished his seminary studies, and he was apparently the best seminary student in the seminary's history. Like I was reading one source, and this was from, I think it was written in the 50s or 60s, but it is said that the professors at the seminary would still go back this was 100 years after, the seminary professors would still go back in the books of the history of all the students and just rant and rave about how great of a student Pius must have been, because he got honors in every single one of his subjects from the first year to his seventh year. But since he was only 23 years old, he was still too young to be ordained to the priesthood. But since he was just so amazing, his bishop wrote to Rome and got a dispensation for Pius to be ordained to the priesthood. And he was then ordained as a priest in Castelfranco, which, as you remember, was the place where he went to grammar school, and the place where he really cultivated a lot of the future religious devotion that he had at the cathedral there, which the same cathedral he was ordained in. And then the following day, the feast of Our Lady of Sorrows, the Pius went and said his first mass in his home parish, back in his hometown of Riese. I have no idea, Ries, but something like that. I don't know how to pronounce Italian words. And I was reading this one source, and it just happened to mention happenstance. This was a pre-Vatican II source. It just mentioned happenstance, how big of a deal it was that it was the first time that he had touched the host. And that just made me think that's kind of sad when it comes to an age of communion on the hand, that isn't a thing anymore. That sacred duty of being able to handle the body of our Lord isn't something that is seen as just a very high honor. That just kind of stuck out to me. I mean, I'm not received yet, but I don't. Even when I was an Anglican, I received on the tongue. So a few days later, Pius, he received a letter announcing where he would go as a priest, his assignment, and the Bishop of Treviso appointed him to be the curate of Don Antonio Costanti. So apparently everybody's named Don in Italy at this time. This is like the third Don in the story, and they're all priests. And he was a parish priest in Tombolo. So that's all that I have for Pius's young life. Thank you for listening. Make sure you look out for those future episodes, and make sure you destroy that. Oh, man, I'm stuttering today for some reason. Make sure you destroy that subscribe button, smash that like button, leave some comments, destroy the algorithm so everybody can see how based Pope St. Pius X is. And thank you, and God bless.
Glory be to God.